My name is Ofir, and I'm the founder of the Eagle Network. We do wildlife law enforcement, and every week we have a few arrests of wildlife traffickers in one of the 9 countries that we are working in right now. I want to tell you more about the journey that led me to this. I think there's some lessons to be learned from that, and also a bit of an insight on the actual crime. I believe there will be more, some of the professionals in the group that would ask more specific specific questions that I can get into maybe more professional or more focused kind of insights to that. So let me start with my journey. This is Kita, and Kita is an orphaned chimp. I rescued her from the trafficker of Kita, and her trafficker was getting the dubious honor to be the very first trafficker to ever be prosecuted in all of wildlife trafficker in all of West and Central Africa, and therefore Kita became my baby. And all baby chimps are unique, each one in its own way. And Kita was very unique in that she loved to be tickled. And every morning, Kita would take me by the hand, throw herself on the bed to be tickled. And chimps have a laugh. You can't hear it now, I think. It's sort of like, that's a chimp laugh. And you can also see her small toy there, her favorite toy. And when I got enough from tickling, Kita, that never had enough, would grab me by the hand and throw herself to the bed again and tickle again. And that's how it goes every morning with Kita in that kind of ceremony. And if I would wake too late, I would make this mistake. Kita would try to make her own feeding bottle. It means that she would get her bottle and try to scoop the milk powder and try to put some water in it and make a big mess out of my kitchen. Here she is asking for food, and Kita was just like my baby, and like a child, she would just play all the time. And here she is playing with the kids, the neighbors' kids, Nicole and Carol. And I would be called each time when they would have a fight, or when Kita would take their toys and not give back, and I had to come and try to separate them and make peace between them. And that's just a snapshot of some of the moments we have. And Kita, of course, now is no longer in my house. This was a sort of a passage towards a sanctuary that would accept her, and today she's with a family of chimps in the Limbe Wildlife Center. But to take a little bit backwards to how I fell in love with Africa, when I was 18, I took a backpack and went to Kenya to travel in the reserves. And I got so fascinated that I got lost. I went out of the reserve, I got lost, and these are the guys that found me, and they rescued me. And I'm there on the right, to whoever didn't notice yet. And that's how I fell in love with Africa. I discovered so much, especially from the people and their traditions and values. And when I came back after my military service, I came back as an adventurer, crossing thousands of kilometers in the bush, in the wilderness, living with the animals, living with the people, and being fascinated by that, whether with my camel or on a horseback, with my canoe, or by foot. And I was living with the most remote communities and trying to get to learn from them different values, different traditions, different wisdoms that I think are lost already in the Western world. And these were my adventure years. And my adventure years led me directly to becoming an activist, just by trying to give back a little bit to the continent that gave me so much, from teaching in villages to humanitarian operations, trying to contribute in different ways as an independent person, even writing on human rights issues from the conflict zones in the continent at the time. And that is how I arrived to Cameroon. I was writing about human rights, stoning of women. It got a bit tough. They tried to kill me, and so I wanted to take a break. And I thought that crossing to Cameroon, writing about the problem of the extinction of apes is a good thing to do with my time, and maybe an easy thing to do. And I went after a sentence from Jane Goodall that in 20 years, we're going to lose chimps and gorillas and other endangered species in Africa to the illegal trade in their meat, the bushmeat trade. Sort of looking at the ape meat as an exclusive kind of like luxurious meat that attracts the elite both inside Africa and outside Africa. And what I wanted to do is basically, well, take a small time, redirect some of the public opinion towards the conservationists that do good work in fighting against this dark prophecy of Jane Goodall, and trying to assist those conservationists. And so arriving to Cameroon, the consequences of the trade were pretty apparent. It wasn't rooted, the illegal trade was not rooted in poverty, but in the rich and the powerful. Most of what you see here in those images are things that were ordered by high officials. The trade was pretty rampant. There was a law that gives up to 3 years imprisonment to anyone even touching a chimp. But what I saw in front of me were police officers and wildlife officers that were themselves running the trade. So they were the criminals. The people who are supposed to enforce those laws were themselves the criminals, gaining money from it. It was a very big industry, and it was very easy to see. The crates you see here was used to transport 6 chimps at a time, just like Kita, fetching dozens, tens of thousands of dollars to the trafficker. So basically, there was the law, and there was this contradiction. And as a journalist, I'm coming in, I'm looking at all those things, and I'm asking myself, wait a second, there is a law against it? And my first question as a journalist was, so how many times was the law applied for the 9 years of its existence? And the answer was 0. 0 wildlife prosecutions. Not just in Cameroon, where I was trying to write about it, but in all of Central Africa and West Africa, and all of the range of African great apes. It was quite apparent that the suspect for explaining 0 was quite in front of me, and was the corruption that I could see just in the trade itself. So basically, after 2 weeks, I had my article. I had almost the article ready. I was volunteering in an ape sanctuary so that I could see what you've seen in the videos. Apes are so much like us. They are expressive. They have feelings. You could feel it. You can see it. They are our closest relative. The race towards extinction, the illegal trade that I could see quite openly, and the corruption that enables it. So the story was there, and I wanted a happy ending to the story. I wanted to look for the light in the end of the tunnel. So I went to the conservation world. But instead of the light in the end of the tunnel, I found a conservation failure. I didn't get many answers. When I was talking about the crisis, what I see in front of me, extinction that is just quite, quite in my face. Conservationists in huge castles, Mercedes-Benz parking and 4x4 moving around rather than in the field, but in the capital. The answers I got were things like, hey, we do sensitization, we do seminars, we do workshops, we do capacity buildings. Half of these words I didn't understand, and now after so many years in conservation, I can say that I still don't understand them. But when I was trying to talk about enforcement, they were saying, hey, it's not us, that's government. It has nothing to do with us. And when I was talking about corruption at that time, no one would even pronounce the word corruption. That's how bad it was. So it seemed to me that conservation was ignoring its number one obstacle for its objectives, which is corruption. And conservation world, the conservation world itself in a country like Cameroon was not separate than any other kind of sector in the country, and many times were themselves plagued with corruption. So I was kind of stuck with my article. I was very frustrated, trying to find a light in the end of the tunnel, and ending up drowning in a far, far bigger problem. And at this point, very frustrated, I wanted to get out of the capital, and I went to a small town 4 hours away in the bush where I could take pictures like this very fast. And I just dropped out of the bus, went to a bar, and within 5 minutes, I got the whole story. People told me, hey, we sell chimp meat is being sold over here, and gorilla hens are being sold over there. And we also have live ones. And what were they talking about? Just like Kita, they were talking about survivors of the bushmeat trade. Those small chimps or small gorillas that maybe survived the slaughter of their entire family from the trade. And that's what I had in front of me. One of the people was a motorbike, taxi motorbike, and took me the following morning to the live one. And that's what I had in front of me, this 1 year and a half baby chimp, sick, skinny, about to die. And just that you'll understand how it works, when a poacher is killing apes for their meat, he ends up killing several members of the family because apes protect each other. And a chimp like this lives up to about 3 years old on the back of the mother. So if the mother is killed, baby chimp doesn't run away. Just like a human baby, he stays and clings to the mother's body. He cries because he's helpless. He's dependent totally on the mother. And then the poacher can hold him just like he's holding him here and see whether there's enough meat on him to kill him for the meat, or maybe try his luck in the illegal pet trade. And therefore they have a little bit more time. They live on borrowed time. Baby gorillas, for example, don't survive for long, because even if they get all the physical conditions, all the physical things they need, like milk, water, others, if they do not get touch, if they don't get, to be very simple with it, love, they just snap and die. Their immune system just collapses, and that is it. Chimps have a bit of a different strategy. They kind of lock their emotional world. Many times we see captive chimps repeat the same movement again and again and again. For example, rocking, just like you would see in a mental hospital for humans, for example. And they tried to sell me this baby chimp. They abused him. He was held with a rope that was creating wounds on the side of the body through the waist, which is very common. And they tried to sell him to me for less than $100, which of course I wouldn't want to give them, because that will send them back to the forest to kill more chimps, knowing that there is a business with it. And of course, they were abusing him. He was locked in his emotional world. He was treated like a rat, and he was acting like a rat, not like the baby chimp that he is and that I've seen. And so, of course, I was very angry, and I vowed to save this baby chimp. And I went to the wildlife station, to the wildlife officers. And I went there and I said, look, here's the situation. There is this baby chimp. He's about to die. There are these criminals. I see a poster on your wall from the NGOs stating the law. That's your job. Let's do it. And they said, give me money. And I tried to explain more. And the more I explained, the more they were just interested in how they can get a bribe from me. And their appetite was growing larger, I suspect, because of the NGOs working with them, as they were using keywords from the NGO world. Give me per diem, keyword for a bribe. Give me transport, wink, wink, keyword for a bribe. And I was getting more frustrated, and after 40 minutes, long story short, they say, white man, what do you want? Do you want a baby chimp? We can sell you another baby chimp. So after all this time, they were the criminals, and themselves, they wanted to trade with me illegally a baby chimp because they thought I wanted one. So you can understand how frustrated I was and angry. And I couldn't sleep that night. I kept on thinking of this baby chimp. Look how sad he is. You can actually see it in this photo. All this frustration I had from African governments and from corruption and from the lack of enforcement and from the NGO world itself, all of it now had a face, and that is the face, and it was haunting me. And I said, I must save this baby chimp. This baby chimp can outlive me. And I put a piece of paper on the table in my motel, and I started writing my anger out. I started writing my criticism, what is wrong, and why is it that everything is so bad and so messed up here? And at a certain point at night, where it got a little bit more, where I got a little bit tired, I asked myself, but Ofir, why are you so angry? What did you expect to find? Why are you so frustrated? And then I wrote a different part of what I think needs to happen, what I think has to happen. And I wrote about activism, activists, passion. I wrote about a group that will attack heads on the first obstacle of everything, corruption. We'll fight corruption to get the law applied, and would have an investigation unit with undercover investigators that will infiltrate the trade and will try to get to the bigger traffickers, especially those officials that I've seen trafficking. And an operations unit, not to give the information to the policemen that I've seen actually illegally trading, but a unit that will go with the police, take them by the hand, and do the arrest operation and fight corruption during the arrest. And then a legal unit that will privately prosecute those cases and be in the court and check where corruption creeps in and fight it in real time and check that these people are indeed in jail and visit them in their prison cells to see that indeed that is what is happening. And a media effort that would take this change in enforcing the law and throw it back to the public and show them that they need to be deterred, creating that deterrent that is missing. So I wrote all this, and the following morning, I just went to the wildlife office, and I took the book of law, and I went back to those traffickers. And they had a very nice house, but they kept the chimp in the outside dirty kitchen. So I took the book of law from the wildlife station and put it on their big table and read it to them. 3 years imprisonment. And they look at me and they look at the book of law and they look at me again. And they were totally unimpressed. So I said, look, I know that these words in the book is what? Is a bribe of $2, $3 for you? I know it. But that's exactly what I'm here for. That's my new job. And then I started bluffing them using what I wrote the night before. I am a part of a big international NGO that fights corruption to get the law applied. And all my job is to make sure you don't bribe your way. So a car is coming to take you, the judge is waiting for you, and I'm here to see that you don't bribe your way. And now they got hysterical. In fact, they started shouting at the motorbike taxi that brought me to them on the first place. And I let them boil in the juices a bit, and I was faking a phone call to an imaginary headquarters saying, yes, they are collaborative, tell the judge that they will be brought to him today, and no need to bring the police because they are collaborative. We'll bring them right in. The car is coming in 1 hour. And after a while, I told them, look, you know, you are nice to me. I'm not feeling so well doing this to you on a personal basis. If you remain my informants and you'll give me more information about those activating you, the higher people in your network, maybe there's something I can do for you. And of course, they were begging for me to do that. And at this time, they just wanted to get rid of the baby chimp. And I went to the baby chimp and tried to untie him from the ropes that you've seen. And they were sure that he'll run away because he acted like a rat, you know. They just poked him and abused him. But I knew what was locked in there, and I stretched my arms up, and this young guy was just climbing up my body and reached my chest and gave me one big hug. And in that second, he was transformed back to a baby that needs loves and emotions and hugs and all the time, and attention all the time. And at this time, I was still under the impression, and I named him Future because that's what I wanted to give him. He was 1.5 years old, and the idea was that he can outlive me. And I was still under the impression that I'm going back to the capital and take the baby chimp and give him to the sanctuary that is going to take care of him, and take what I wrote that night and give it to somebody in Yaoundé and tell them, look, if you do that, you're in a better footing to fight for the future of this species. But sanctuaries were not able to take Future, and I became his father and mother. And this is the young guy that was basically forcing me to apply what I was writing at that night and prove it is possible, and create the very first wildlife law enforcement NGO in existence. And that was a typical scene where I'm a mother and father to this baby, and working till late hours to try to plan everything and try to make it happen. And he would already be sleeping on me, and I would take him to bed, and he would sleep on my chest after changing of diapers, of course. And a lot of times in the middle of the night, I would feel his small eyeballs moving on me, and he would be waking up from a nightmare. Chimps, apes have dreams, and orphan chimps have many times nightmares, probably from the slaughter of their family and the trauma from that. And when he would wake up from a nightmare, he would try to soothe himself by basically trying to suck and trying to get milk, but I don't have that. So he would just give me lots of hickeys on my throat and on my neck. And at this time, I was really trying to be in the government offices and look all respectable and serious to try to make this happen. And the hickeys didn't really go along with that very easily. So from that time, we really started making this happen, me and a group of activists, and this is Kita and how we rescued Kita. We kept on going with ivory operations, leopard skins, lion skins. We got court results, and after prosecutions and jails, we managed to climb higher, like going after the Chinese connection to the big ivory trade. We managed to get higher people, public officials, army officials, politicians. We managed to get foreign nationals, like this Greek director of a logging company that was illegally trading both African grey parrots as apes, and we managed to get him to jail. We were able to go to high level corruption. For example, the illegal trade in African grey parrots. I'll stop it for a second. The illegal trade in African grey parrots is far more lucrative than the ivory trade, but gets far less attention. What you see here is a shipment, more or less a weekly shipment of a criminal ring. And that shipment has about 1,000 parrots. And we're talking about $1 million plus of illicit profit just from this one shipment. So very lucrative, big illegal ring. And we uncovered that the person that was the top of this pyramid was no other than the Deputy Minister of Wildlife of that country. And so we managed to attack the bigger ivory trafficking syndicates with big quantities of ivory and containers of shipping of ivory. I will get back to this case, but what you see here is a syndicate that we were dismantling that was using false compartment in a 40-foot container. So this is a false door and a false compartment, and in it they would ship around 600 tasks every 2 months. I'll get back to that. So fast forward, now we're not just one country, Cameroon, where we started making these things happen. We are the Eagle Network. We are operating in 9 countries and growing. I mentioned it before the talk. Just today, just minutes before I was connecting, we finished a good operation in Senegal just now, a trafficker in leopard skins and in leopards and lions parts. And every week we have a few of these arrests. For now, by now we have more than 2,500 major traffickers that we put behind bars, and that includes colonels, generals, politicians, people who have 4 cars in their garage, people who have spent most of their lives in France, in Europe, in the US. We put police commissioners behind bars, the many different kind of officials, even a wildlife director, a person who is in charge of protecting wildlife of his entire country, was getting to jail from one of our operations because he was, of course, also the biggest trafficker. So this is in short where we are at. And I mentioned corruption in the beginning as a sort of a hypothesis or a sort of like an impression in the beginning. Now, in so many cases, we have very strong statistics about it. This picture is not an illustrative picture. It's a real bribe taking place, a real bribing attempt from a real ivory trafficker, arrest of an ivory trafficker. We film our operations. So this is just a capture I was doing from one of our hidden camera doing an operation. So now that we have the statistics, I'll tell you that in 85% of all of our arrest operations globally, we document bribing attempts. 85% of all of the arrests. And we don't just intercept it and we don't denounce it, okay? Because we're not a watchdog group, we are an enforcement NGO. We're fighting corruption in real time, even if it means physically, which happened to me many times, to stop it physically. So 85% of all of the arrest operations, we are combating bribing attempts. Imagine how dysfunctional is a police force enforcement system that 85% of the time does not produce enforcement. The situation in courts is not that much better. In fact, the statistics we have is 80%. So 80% of the court cases, we can tell you who was trying to bribe, who was the judge trying to create a deal with the trafficker, was the clerk of the court trying to hide the court case, and so on. And again, our job is to intercept it in order to fight it, not in order to say, hey, corruption happens, because all of us knows corruption happens. So that's a little bit about corruption. I want to give you a bit of a snapshot just to end it with a little bit of an insight on how criminal this business really is. And then I'll be happy to get your questions into more in-depth aspects of this. What you see here is a car with four big sacks of marijuana and cocaine in this small container above. And if you see very well what is in the middle, that's a baby chimp, just like Kita, just like Future. And the reason why this chimp is in the middle of all these sacks is that the illicit value of the chimp is more in what you see more in what you see surrounding it. So we had an undercover investigation against a chimp trafficker. The chimp trafficker was also a drugs trafficker, and we tried to get everything at the same time and arrested him on the way from Cameroon to Nigeria, trying to take it across the border and sell everything together. This is the guy, this is a trafficker, and he was also activating 16 poachers, a little bit about the link between poaching and trafficking. And of course, he was less interested in the small things they have to hunt and more of the high value animal that is there. And this is not an isolated example. We have many other examples of the link between the drugs trafficking and the illegal wildlife trade trafficking and how organized illegal wildlife trafficking is. Here is another example about that. What you've seen already in the small footage over there. This is the tank syndicate, example of how criminal syndicates operate. And what you see here is an X-ray of the 40 feet container, the same as the one that you've seen in the footage. It's done in a very similar way as you do an X-ray to your body. So you can see what is darker is of higher consistency. And if you look very well on the left side of this container, you will see some material in a different consistency. It's darker. It's more dense. And you'd see that it's kind of sandwiched with two different walls, basically. And this is the false compartment container. And what you see on the right is the false ending of that container. And on the left is the real ending. And in between, of course, is the compartment that you have seen. And you could even see those pointy things, even in X-ray, showing that this is ivory. And this is what was in the first container that was seized in Hong Kong. triggering our own investigation on that. I wouldn't get too much into it, but I will just give you the scope of it so that you understand what it is. These are 600 tasks. Every seizure like this represents more than 300 killed elephants. They were exporting this at least every 2 months. So every 2 months, 300 killed elephants, one Asian criminal family. The profit of each one of these is around $2 to $3 million at that time. Now it's about $5 to $6 million, even more. They were active from the 80s. So unlike the myth that is propagated now, organized crime has been on wildlife for a very, very long time with the same players. A conservative estimate to what this criminal family was doing, to the slaughter and the damage they've created over these decades, conservative estimate is around 36,000 elephants. Yes, you've heard right. 36,000 elephants for one family. This is not an isolated example. That's around 10% of the elephants we have right now in Africa if we're lucky. Just one family disseminated that. And there are more families like it. Their operations was, of course, stretching sub-regions. They were activating and coordinating hundreds of poachers. The idea that you have a poacher going around hunting one elephant and being stuck with tasks that he's trying now to find markets for is non-existent to the data that we have from our own operations. It's all very organized, hierarchical. They use the vast network of corruption, generals, magistrates, mayors, ministers, members of parliaments, etc. They were not bribed to make something move. They were not bribed in the border. These were people who are part of their criminal organization. Of course, we're talking about money laundering in this kind of figures. They were not paying taxes for it. There was also a connection with Pakistan indicating the drugs trade and arms trade leads. So I was just trying to give a bit of examples. I could talk about that until tomorrow with so many different examples that are fascinating. Every day for us is new. Every day for us is fascinating. Even the small operation we had now that we considered not a big one turned out to be extremely interesting with an Indian in Senegal with links to so many African countries within the year, mind you, in a Corona time. Every day we have something new. Every day is fascinating for us. To end, I would say that I have so many messages about the seriousness of this illegal trade, about how conservation is its own worst enemy and needs to change in order to get action against wildlife crime, rather than more workshops about the illegal trade, workshops about enforcement and training. Conservation needs to be very much results oriented and deal with enforcement and corruption heads on. But I think a larger message here is of the importance of outsiders, of people from outside the conservation world, bringing new ideas because they're outsiders and being able to affect change, I would say quite easily. A lot of times people are looking at what we're doing and they're saying, oh, this is wonderful, this is amazing, how do you do that? And what we say is basically, it is not complicated, it's not rocket science. If you are an activist, if you want to do it, if you want to hunt those traffickers down and make sure that they get jail time, you can do it. There's techniques to do that and techniques to fight corruption to do that. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy for questions.
Thank you for the talk. That was wonderful. Question about before lockdown and lockdown, and when borders were shut, did that change your tactics, like put a pause on things where you could trace things down a little tighter because traffic was less or travel was less? Thank you.
Well, I mean, our analysis from the beginning of this was that was on one hand, when we have a crisis, a social crisis, people are in need, then people are looking for cash. Every time there is a situation like this, crime is going up. On the other hand, travel is more restricted. So in our own African reality, it means that you need to bribe in with more cash, and that slows down the business. So we were kind of like, the trade will stay more or less the same. And indeed, that's what we have seen in the end. Kind of balanced it out, two sides. On the other hand, what happened is that enforcement was completely detracted. Not only because police has a role to enforce all of the corona regulations, but in many of the more corrupt countries, this offered a lucrative vocation for the police officers. So instead of doing any enforcement work, they would go and harass people for bribes in that background. And that also happened. But I think the biggest thing for us was that the restrictions on travel inside the country, restrictions on being in vehicles, even moving outside of houses, was really difficult for us. So every day we worked on trying to find solutions to continue working. How do you work when there is a travel ban, when the country is closed, when access are actually locked? How do you do this operation? How do you get to move to an operation where there is no longer public transport or any of this? So literally every day we got something new in one of the countries that we need to find new solutions for in a very creative way. I would say that it got into an extent that we even had countries where there were circulars for police officers or wildlife officers not to leave their stations. And yet we were able to get operations. So it was a real test for the activism spirit of the organization, I would say, where you could easily say, it will not work. But if you fight for it and you spit blood for it, you make it work. So we managed to stay operational.
Thank you, Ofir. Before I'm going to unmute Eva Spiridis, two questions in the chat I would just like you to respond to. I think they're similar. Lorraine is asking how she can get involved, and Rhonda is asking about donations, how to do that. Over to you, Ofir.
The what, say again?
After that, Eva.
What is the second one? The nation?
Second one, the first one is how to get involved, and the second one is about donations. Rhonda asking about donations and how to do it.
What do you mean? Say it, explain again.
Donations, how to give you money.
Donations. Okay, I got you.
This is the question.
Yeah. Okay. So those who know me know I don't hear the word donation very well, and the reason for it is that it's good to put those two things together.
We're not trying to bribe you off here. We're just asking about donations.
No, it's really
we want
great.
A per diem. We're just asking for a per diem.
It's really great you put those two together. Because indeed, when we look at everything that is limiting us and the struggle we're after as activists, then the activism, more people in this community that would actually fight, is by far the most scarce resource, is by far what is limiting this from expanding. Of course, we want 10 countries and 11 countries, and we have several countries that are saying, please come to us now, let's do it. But I think the activism is the most scarce resource here, much more than money. And that is why we keep on saying to people, even people who wants to donate, in saying, listen, you know, if you're passionate for this, you want to do this, help us in many other ways, because you can. We have volunteers that are helping us in different ways. Some of them are searching on computer and trying to find some traffickers. Others are translating to a foreign language something that we wrote so that we can do an investigation. We have people helping us in many different ways. And I think that's the spirit of our organization, is about that. It's about, hey, we reach out to people, and when we get people, you know, reaching out to us, we say, hey, what's your talent? What can you do? How can you help us? Let's talk about that first. I'll put my email down later on so that you can see it. Okay, our website is eagle-enforcement, so it's easy, eagle-enforcement.org. That's our website, and my email is Ofir Art with that address. I'll put it later on the screen.
Thank you, Ofir. I think we should try and get it on sooner than later so people can see it, and we will also put it in on the YouTube. Before you get a turn, I am quite surprised that Marty Jasper, who's got an eagle behind him, has not asked a question yet. But you're not on yet, Marty. Eva, over to you, please.
Well, thank you very much. My question has basically just been answered, because I was trying to find out what we can all do, or what more we can all do. And apart from donations very often. So thank you very much for that. My question has basically been answered. And that's why I'm just left to say thank you, because that's one of the reasons why I came on tonight. I've been following Ofir for quite some time. And I think the people on the ground sometimes underestimate that they actually are seeing, that people do notice what you're doing. I have a lot of respect for what you're doing, and your team, a lot of respect and gratitude. You put your life on the line every day. This is what I call the real life heroes. I'm sitting here in Germany, where people have completely other problems, let's say, and it's hard to connect people to what else is going on out there in the world. And when your heart beats for Africa, I always try to find a way to share this with the world here and make them understand and get them involved. But sometimes I just don't know how and what more we can all do. So very inspiring, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. There you have the email of Ofir at eagle-enforcement.org. Ofir, I want to ask that you exit screen again so we can see the people raising their hands. Let's see any other hands. Anybody would like to ask a question? Except those who already have eagles behind their heads. Jacques Milan, I'm asking you to unmute, please, and then you can ask your question.
Hello, Ofir. Thank you very much. It was a great talk. I would just like to know, seeing that there's so much corruption in the police, especially, do you find during the past few years that you've had some positive work done? Do you find that there's less corruption amongst them, and how do you get them involved? Are they forced to kind of help you, or do they really change their mindset and they want to help you?
Okay, thanks. It's an important question. And first of all, the real answer is no. No, we don't turn corrupt people into angels. No, I don't do a transformation healing, and I don't do a change of hearts of people. Greed is greed, okay? Corruption is not just in Africa, it's everywhere. And it's about checks and balances, it's about systems. If a system is unchecked, corruption flourishes, because greed is what will I say? It's a human trait, and it's a part of our societies. The only question is how you deal with it. So no, I don't turn devils into angels, but we're basically, because when I gave those statistics, think about it, 85% and 80%, these are dysfunctional systems. It's not just corruption, and it's not specific for wildlife either. These are dysfunctional systems. So we create, what we're able to do is create an island of governance in a chaos. We were managing to create an island of something functional in something bigger that is not really functional. Where we got a larger kind of impact is what the population of the country, of what they think is possible, what they think they can demand from the governments, from their authorities. You know, I'll give you a very short example. It was in Cameroon a little bit before the presidential elections, and which you can understand how it is in a country like Cameroon. And I was interviewed in the morning in the national governmental, basically, radio, as I did many times. And I was interviewed and talking about corruption and talking about wildlife crime and so on. And somebody called from the audience and he said, take those people and put them to observe our elections and you'll see how we'll have a democracy here. And the broadcaster was shocked, and he was shutting down the phone, and he was so upset, and he was afraid that police is going to come and arrest him for having that on his show, and it was a big mess. But that day was really telling for me, for the impact of where you show people what is possible. When we were getting a governor behind bars in Gabon, for wildlife, the news was going all around Central Africa. A governor got into jail. We realized that governors did not get to jail anywhere in these countries, ever. And we used wildlife as to create a precedence. And it made a huge impact. When we removed the first magistrate, revoked the first magistrate, it made first page in the national newspaper. And I was shocked. I said, what? Okay, I've done good, but first page, there is no news in this country. So a lot of times when we do that, we get a precedence or we get achievements for the fight against corruption, which is a landmark for the society. And that creates an appetite for citizens to ask more, for citizens to not say, you know, Cameroon is Cameroon, South Africa is South Africa, whatever will be the saying that each country is saying when you're saying, nothing changes here. Activism is about getting that appetite to say, yeah, many years nothing changed and it's hard, but we need to start somewhere. Even if it's just in front of a police officer trying to take a bribe when I move out of the bar, going back home.
Thank you, Ofir. Before I'm going to read the question of Lorraine Titok, Marty Jasper, you don't have to ask a question, but you can say something if you wish. I'm unmuting you. I'm missing you for asking a question.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so the reason I haven't asked a question here tonight is I actually only joined on the call at about 20 past. I was late from a work meeting, so I don't want to ask a question that may have already been covered. I thought, let everyone else ask, and if what I'm thinking hasn't been asked yet, I will ask.
Well, Marty, sorry, bad news. You've had your turn. I normally say, remember when the mind goes blank to switch off the sound. But lovely to see you on, Marty. Lorraine is asking, she says, who were the people helping you in the very beginning, locals or traveling friends? And then the second part of her question, have you found that women and children are sometimes involved in the trade? Ofir, did you hear that?
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Yes, the very beginning, I got Cameroonians with me. We had nothing, no donations, no money, no office, no computer. We're working from cyber cafes. We met in bars. We had no donations, no plan, no donors, no nothing. And that was the biggest advantage we ever had. Because if we had that, we would attract the wrong people. And by having nothing, by spitting blood to get it working, we attracted the right kind of people. People who want to make a change, people that is important for them to do something beyond themselves, people who have that kind of potential to be activists. And so the very beginning was all created with Cameroonians which were passionate and were doing this without any money, without any salary, without anything. We would go and carry an operation and me and the rest of the team, and we would be all macho and arresting people, and in the evening we would be two men in twin bed because we wouldn't have money for anything else. That's what created activism. So that is the case until now. Each country has a team that is a local team. It's the nationalists, people who are patriots, who are fighting for that. And that's how it is until now. We still have a lot of others, international people who are helping, who are pushing, who are opening new countries as well. And the second one.
The involvement of women and children in the trade.
Yes. So, women are involved. Women are traffickers, just like men. There are many women traffickers. I don't think there is such a big division here in the demographics. Just yesterday, I had a discussion with my team in Uganda about priests. They were trying to hire somebody, and he's also a priest, and we are interviewing him, and there were discussion around that. So I would say, we've arrested Catholic priests and Protestant priests and imams, Muslim imams, and everything. So in the end, it is the cut of the society. There is no one that is a sector in society that is outside criminality, I would say, where we got an opening where crime can flourish, it flourishes, and that's how it works.
Thank you, Ofir. Lorraine, you are unmuted if you wanted to comment on your own question.
I have another question.
Okay, and then, sorry, Lorraine, just 1 second. After you, I just want to check. We have somebody's been holding on for quite a while. I just want to get the name here. Thomas O'Hell. So after you, Lorraine, Thomas O'Hell. Thank you.
Okay. If you're able to talk about Uganda Wildlife Foundation, are you finding there's corruption in the conservation organizations in Uganda?
Okay, that's a straight question. There was a time in which I was investing more of my time in the subject of corruption in the NGO business. So I actually spent a lot of time on that, and I was doing case studies, and I have many case studies of actual corruption in NGO business because I'm really fascinated by this subject. I think it's a big problem. Specifically for that, I pay less attention in Uganda NGO world now. I think it is saturated. I think it is problematic in Uganda. I definitely think it creates an atmosphere where there's less work being done and corruption rises. It has a lot to do also with the kind of like supply demand. When you have too many NGOs trying to do something, you end up with a government that can choose who to reject and who to not, and that means business. I myself was asked for bribes for high-level government officials just to be operating, and so that's just to tell you this is just it's a custom, you know. If you're an NGO director and you didn't have that, something is wrong somewhere, because that is the bad practices. Specifically for that NGO, yes, there was a specific thing way back that was really a hint of corruption. It was in the back. I don't want to get into the details with everyone, but it is a procurement issue, so it's a matter of something that smells really, really bad. On that, it's not money that is embezzled as it is moving from one hand to the other in a contract.
Thank you, Ofir. Thomas, over to you.
Just to add one thing and to say, the corruption practices exist in the NGO sector because the NGO sector is not very much different than any other sector in the same environment. But the NGO sector is enjoying an image of being clean, while in fact having far less checks and balances than even the governments we're talking about, and less transparency. That's what creates that kind of situations.
Interesting. Thomas.
Hello, Ofir. Hello, everybody. I have a very quick question. We're working in Indonesia. We have some very, very small successes, but it's very far to what you guys from Eagle are doing. You said that you basically did it. You started to do it without any hesitating, and the past was very difficult. I would say, if I look at your rate of successful behind the barring, it's something different that what's going on in Southeast Asia. In Indonesia, most of the NGOs like Traffic, WWF are maximally describing the issues, maximally pointing out, but there is very less, basically there's nothing going on in real law enforcement. What should we do? Do you have some ideas? Do you have some teams which are able to go to Southeast Asia, especially to Indonesia, to help us out? Or how would you empower and encourage people working in the other parts of the world? Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. And we do that, and actually had a Skype a month and a half ago with several groups in Indonesia about that exact thing, and offering also our help in getting them in Africa, or even sending somebody there for training and sharing with you a lot of the methods and how it can be done. But yes, we are reaching out to many parts of the world. We do that quite regularly, and we say, look, we cannot stretch ourselves, we cannot open an office in every part of the world, but we can help, and we can train, and we can share. All of our methodologies are actually in a manual of more than 100 pages that is built towards replicating those systems, replicating the ways to do that. And we offer support to whoever tries. So we do that with conservation. We also do that cross-sector. So we also do that in integrating the fight against corruption in illegal mining, illegal logging, and so on. So yes, we are always interested, Thomas, and please write me, and we can get something going on that, because we look at it as our responsibility, and we definitely will do anything to have that. There is a big difference between, because right now, I'm saying that because right now the big projects of enforcement are not enforcement, are workshops on enforcement, are training magistrates. You can't train magistrates not to be corrupt, and you can't sensitize a police officer to stop taking bribes. So it goes to an extent, and there it stops where corruption is. And you cannot fight corruption through smiling in a workshop. It just doesn't work. So it's different methodologies of how to integrate the fight against corruption into this kind of work. And again, I'll be very happy, Thomas, and anybody else wants to pick up the glove and help push that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll send you the contact soon. And thanks for organizing this nice event.
Thank you, Thomas. You are welcome. Let's check the, I know Marty's got his hand up. I'm keeping him for the last. When I say there's 30 seconds left, then I'll give Marty a chance. Just want to check if there are any other questions. Rod Cassidy, I'm going to unmute you, please. And then I just want to say hi to Tamar. Hello, Tamar. I'm happy that Rod is back.
Good to
See you again,
Hi.
Tamar. And hope things are going well.
We have 3 people, yeah. We got Tamar and Tessa.
Oh, happy that you're all back together there in Sangha Lodge. Wonderful, Rod. You look much more happy than you did in Pretoria. Okay, putting you on mute, you Rod, and so you can drink a sip of your beer. I know that's what you want to do now. All right, seems to me, let's see if we have the last person with a question. Anybody else? You raise a hand. Marty raised his hand, and I'm sure it's Marty who wrote Marty raised his hand. Marty, over to you.
Cool. So thank you very much, Ofir, for the very interesting talk. Apologize for not hearing all of it, but I was just interested from a corruption point of view, and it's kind of shed a different sort of light for me on the whole wildlife trade and illegal wildlife trade. But so firstly, you mentioned that you've had a lot of death threats and things. Have any of your staff members actually been killed or anything like that? That's sort of the first question. I was just interested. And then the other side, is it corruption and greed sort of at a smaller local level, or like what we experience in South Africa with the rhino poaching, it's often linked to international syndicates and middlemen and fat cats at the end of the, you can't actually get close to the guys sitting in Laos and Vietnam and all of those places where the end users are. Are you fighting the same thing with like syndicates that are into drugs and smuggling and poaching and illegal wildlife trade? Have you come across that, or is it mainly literally fueled by greed and hunger at a low level, but doesn't link to something bigger?
Well, it's always linked to something bigger. That's what we're saying. You know, it's not rooted in hunger. It has nothing to do with poverty. Poverty doesn't drive this illegal trade, and it doesn't drive also the criminality. Just like anything else, and we have cases of drugs and arms and women trafficking and so on. We see those links all the time, and we have insights with those syndicates. So first of all, I would say it's all organized. Everything that we've seen is different parts of the puzzle. It always goes up. We don't see people who do that because they're hungry. Doesn't exist. In fact, you know, sometimes it's a bit of a myth, because I'll give you an example on the South African kind of context. When people coming from when enforcement is hard in poaching, against poaching in South Africa, and you see Mozambicans are getting killed for crossing and poaching the other side of the borders, people are saying, why do they do that? You know, for money. And the answer is that what they get from it is not money. These areas are areas that are pockets of lack of governance. In other words, what it means is that it's lawlessness. And in lawlessness, you can be arrested for doing nothing. You can be killed for doing nothing. The police commissioner can just put you in jail for no good reason. Your life is completely unstable. There's no stability in your life. When you're in the Wild West, you're not just looking for money, you're looking for a big man. And so if you're working for the mayor, that's what you really get. What you get is protection. What you get is protection not for you, but for your family, for your extended family, from anything. So it's a bit of also in a governance kind of context rather than poverty kind of context. People need money. But yes, from what we see, it's always organized, different levels of organization, organized crime, it's a region, crossing regions, crossing countries, of course. Especially with South Africa, by the way. A lot of our investigations are also ending up in South Africa. It plays a big role in wildlife trafficking across the continent.
Yeah.
So this is a bit about that. Was there a different part of your question I didn't answer?
Yeah, sorry, the first part was just I wouldn't, it would be very sad, but have some of your employees,
Sure.
Their threats. I mean, I know from being involved with sand parks and the honorary rangers, there are rangers that their family members are killed or they have been killed as a result of, and we see it up in Africa as well, wildlife staff that have been killed.
Yes. Well, I didn't have anybody killed until now. I wouldn't say it's luck. We have a lot of procedures from security procedures that are very tight, like Army. We operate like special units in that regard, and we beef up our security procedures every time. We had a lot of examples where people could have been killed. For example, an investigator getting kidnapped by a ring of traffickers, saying, you put somebody else in jail, we're going to kill you. They call somebody else to come in and kill him in front of them. But we are prepared to exactly this kind of situation, so we had a drawer, a contingency plan exactly for that situation, and ended up putting two different kind of baits in this example. One of them was me being completely clueless, as if I'm clueless about the entire kidnapping, and getting their appetite to actually capture me and rescuing our investigator. So there were many close situations like this, but and they were stopped not because of luck, they were stopped because our mind is working on security. Our mind is not about nothing will happen. All the shit will happen. And we just need to be prepared for it in a different way. Another part of this answer is that corruption systems are quite interesting. When we started taking on some of the bigger corrupt people, it was very interesting for us to see that the corrupt system, it looks so much omnipotent. It looks like it's everywhere and it can never be defeated. That's the feeling we have as ordinary citizens usually about the ills of our realities. And it was really interesting for us to see how fast a tentacle, a soldier, even a high soldier in that big corrupt system is turning from an asset to a liability. A judge is corrupt and he is a thief because he's taking bribes. But if he is a bad thief who is getting caught and getting the hit, he is removed very fast from the system. And how we interpret it is that it is still a big man system. And the system doesn't look at activism, doesn't interpret activism. What it does say is that if that politician has spent already 48 hours, and we fight for it, 48 hours behind bars, it's crucial. After 48 hours, nobody wants to help this politician because in these countries, a politician doesn't get to jail unless he crossed another big man, another politician. And if he crosses another politician, we don't touch him, we don't help him. So the big man system and the corrupt system is actually working in our favor and also working in favor and creating protection. Because people don't believe, these criminals don't believe in activism, they believe in big men. And if I manage to get a deputy minister out or a general behind bars, I'm a big man. And that's how the system sees that. And that is protection.
Fascinating. Cor Dirks, I think there was a question on your side. I guess this is the last question for the evening. And Marty, thanks for your question. Cor Dirks, I'm asking for you to unmute. There we go. You're unmuted.
I just wanted to know, how do you get the motion to get the courage to start? Where do you start?
Before Ofir answer, Cor, how old are you?
I'm 13 and I want to be an animal protector when I'm older.
There we go, Ofir. You've got a young disciple there. Over to you, Ofir. Thanks, Cor.
Great, Cor. So look, I mean, I was, first of all, I would say that really, there is no age for it. And if you heard my talk and you've seen what I was doing, you realize that, you know, all that it shows is that anyone can do that, and especially people from the outside, especially. So if somebody tells you, hey, you need to study it more, you need to know more because you know less, I would tell you straight, this is bullshit, because that's what was told to me. When I started, every single person in the system explained to me how I have no idea what international relations are, how the NGO system works, and it's just that I'm ignorant. I knew I'm not ignorant. I'm working not on what is, I'm working on what ought to be. I'm a fighter. But everybody was trying to show me that I'm stupid. And how I got the courage is the passion. So when you have experiences, Cora, because okay, when I was in your age, I was a very bright student. And my idea was that if I read more books, I will know more about the world. And so I was reading and went to the library in the evenings and read more books and more books. And I was really fascinated by that. And you remember I was telling you when I was 18 and I was lost in the reserve. That was the moment where everything broke for me. And I realized that the experience is such a changer, that there's so many things I need to just do, not to read about it, but do, because then I learn about it by my own ways, not by somebody else who told me about it. And all these adventures that I had, living with people and being in scary moments and being in exciting moments, was really creating me this passion. You know, working with the chimps and having a hug from a chimp, that is such huge kind of experience. And that was bringing me the passion. And when you're passionate about something, you're not afraid. It's not even a choice, you know? So I'm so happy for this question, Cor. And I'm saying two things. One, don't let anyone tell you that you cannot do something and that you need to know more about it. Just go and do it. And secondly, have as many experiences as you can and be fully involved, because you'll get that passion with every experience that you have. And that is my drive. That's why I'm not afraid.